My name is Emily, and I'm 35 years old. Growing up in our small coastal town, I thought I had found my forever friends until one devastating winter break shattered everything. For 10 years, I watched from the sidelines as they continued, their annual tradition at Blue Horizon Resort without me. They never knew that while they were busy excluding me, I was busy building an empire. Last month, I purchased the very resort they love so much. This summer, I personally booked their usual suite, but the reunion I planned was nothing like they expected. Before I tell you how I turned the tables on those who broke my heart, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear more stories about sweet, satisfying justice. Sandpoint wasn't just a town on the map, it was a postcard-perfect slice of coastal America. Whitewashed buildings with blue trim dotted the main street that ran parallel to miles of pristine sandy beaches. The smell of salt air mixed with freshly baked bread from Miller's Bakery created a scent I still associate with home. Tourists flocked there in summer, but for those of us who lived there year-round, we knew the real magic of Sandpoint was in its tight-knit community and spectacular sunsets that painted the sky in shades no artist could fully capture. It was in elementary school that our friend group formed. Jessica, with her honey blonde hair and commanding presence, naturally became our leader. Even at 10, she had a way of making decisions that everyone followed without question. Her parents owned the largest real estate agency in town, and her childhood home overlooked the most beautiful section of the beach. Michael, with his quiet confidence and athletic build, became Jessica's boyfriend in 7th grade. A relationship that seemed predestined by our small-town dynamics. His family owned the local marina, and he grew up knowing every boat that docked, there by name. Amanda was Jessica's shadow, always agreeing, always available, and always dressed in whatever style Jessica had adopted that season. Her father was the town's only dentist, and she never let us forget that her braces-free smile was courtesy of Daddy's magic hands. Ryan, with his quick wit and dimpled smile, was the charmer of our group. He could talk his way out of detention, and into the hearts of every girl in school. His parents were both doctors who commuted to the city, leaving him with a level of freedom the rest of us envied. And then there was Rachel, the peacemaker, whose kindness extended to everyone she met. She lived with her grandmother after losing both parents in a car accident when she was 5. A tragedy that seemed to give her an emotional maturity beyond her years. And me? I was the dreamer of the group. My father managed the hardware store, and my mother taught 2nd grade at our local elementary school. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom house 4 blocks from the beach, not overlooking it like Jessica's family. I was the scholarship student, the one who worked summer jobs while my friends lounged by private pools. But what I lacked in financial resources, I made up for in determination and imagination. The Blue Horizon Resort held a special place in my heart long before it became part of our teenage tradition. My grandparents would save all year to rent a small room there for one magical weekend each summer. I remember pressing my nose against the glass of the grand lobby, watching wealthy families check in while my grandfather proudly counted out cash at the front desk. The resort sat on the most coveted stretch of Sandpoint's coastline, its white and blue facade rising 3 stories above perfectly manicured gardens that spilled down to a private beach. When Jessica's parents became members of the resort's exclusive club during our middle school years, our summer routine changed. Instead of meeting at the public beach or rotating between our homes, we began spending long summer days by the resort's infinity pool or playing volleyball on its private beach. Jessica's parents rarely joined us, giving us the freedom to experience a taste of independence in luxurious surroundings. For 5 consecutive summers, from 8th grade through senior year, the Blue Horizon became our second home. We developed traditions within traditions: breakfast on the terrace overlooking the ocean, afternoon swimming competitions in the main pool, and evening bonfires on the beach where we would talk about our dreams and futures. Ryan would bring his guitar, and we would sing under stars that seemed close enough to touch. In those moments, I truly believed nothing could ever come between us. While my friends saw the resort as simply another amenity in their privileged lives, I was fascinated by its operation. I would chat with the staff, learning about occupancy rates and seasonal challenges. The resort manager, Mr. Sullivan, took a liking to me and would sometimes let me shadow him during quiet periods. "You've got a good eye for this business, Emily," he told me once as I suggested a rearrangement of the lobby furniture to improve flow. That simple validation planted a seed that would later grow into my career path. Senior year was the pinnacle of our friendship. We ruled the school, had our futures mapped out, and believed with the unshakable confidence of youth that we would remain central figures in each other's lives forever. The summer before college was especially magical at Blue Horizon. We stayed, up all night on the beach during our last week together, making promises to reunite every year no matter where life took us. I still remember Jessica raising her plastic champagne glass as the sun rose over the ocean. "To us," she declared, "to the best friends anyone could ever have, and to Blue Horizon, our special place forever." We all clinked glasses, sealed our promise, and believed every word. Little did I know that within 6 months, that promise would be broken in the most painful way possible, and the Blue Horizon would transform from a symbol of friendship to a monument of exclusion in my life. College separated us geographically, but not emotionally, or so I thought. Jessica and Michael both attended prestigious universities on the East Coast, their parents' alma maters naturally. Amanda followed Jessica to the same school, unable to imagine forging her own path. Ryan received a partial scholarship to a well-known medical school, beginning his journey toward becoming the doctor his parents expected. Rachel chose a state university with a strong psychology program, determined to help others work through trauma as she had. And I, with my hard-earned scholarship and savings from 3 simultaneous summer jobs, enrolled in a respected business school with a focus on real estate development and management. While my friends settled into campus life with the ease of those who had always been given whatever they needed, I juggled classes with waiting tables at a local restaurant, weekend shifts at a hotel front desk, and occasional tutoring gigs. My schedule was brutal, but each paycheck brought me closer to graduation without crippling debt. Between work and studying, I had little time for the social aspects of college that dominated my friends' social media feeds. Their posts showed football games, sorority events, and weekend trips funded by seemingly bottomless parental accounts. We maintained contact through a group chat and occasional video calls that became increasingly difficult to schedule as our lives diverged. When Jessica suggested we all reunite during winter break at her parents' lake house, I immediately requested time off from all 3 jobs. The opportunity to reconnect with my friends and decompress in a beautiful setting was worth the loss of income. The lake house was a sprawling timber and glass structure nestled among pine trees with panoramic views of the water. I arrived last, my used sedan looking particularly shabby next to the row of newer, more expensive vehicles in the driveway. Jessica greeted me with her characteristic enthusiasm, though I noticed her eyes flickering to my well-worn luggage and the department store outfit I had carefully selected for the reunion. The first evening seemed to recapture our old dynamic. We gathered around a fire pit on the back deck, sharing college stories and passing around photos. I listened more than I spoke, aware that my tales of juggling work and studies paled in comparison to their adventures. Still, it felt good to be among familiar faces after months of being the perpetual new girl. On the second night, I woke around midnight, thirsty from the several glasses of wine we had consumed with dinner. As I padded down the hallway toward the kitchen, I heard voices from the den. The door was partially open, casting a sliver of light into the dark corridor. I recognized Jessica's distinctive laugh, followed by Amanda's eager agreement. "Did you see Emily's shoes? I swear they're the same ones she had in high school," Jessica was saying, her voice slightly slurred from alcohol. "And that sweater? Target clearance for sure," Amanda replied, followed by more laughter. I feel kind of bad for her, Ryan's voice joined in, causing my heart to stop. Ryan, who I had harbored feelings for since sophomore year. Ryan, who had slow danced with me at prom and whispered that I looked beautiful. She's working so hard, and for what? To become a hotel manager while we're all living actual lives? It's just sad, Jessica continued. I invited her because, tradition and all that, but she doesn't really fit with us anymore. She never really did, if we're being honest. Remember how her mom made her prom dress? So embarrassing. I stood frozen in the hallway, tears welling in my eyes. The casual cruelty cut deeper than any deliberate insult could have. These were the people I had trusted with my hopes and insecurities, who I believed knew the real me beyond material possessions. That's enough, Rachel's voice suddenly interjected. You all should be ashamed. Emily works harder than any of us, and she's going to be successful on her own terms. Just because her parents can't bankroll her life doesn't make her less than. Oh, please, Jessica scoffed. You're only defending her because your situation isn't that different? Grandma's house isn't exactly prime real estate either. Wow, Rachel responded, her voice tight with anger. I thought we were better than this. I really did. I should have slipped back to my room, pretended I never heard any of it. But something in me snapped. Perhaps it was the exhaustion from months of nonstop work and study, or perhaps it was the realization that what I thought was friendship was actually charity in their eyes. Whatever the reason, I pushed the door open and stepped into the light. The room fell silent. Jessica's smile froze on her face. Amanda looked down at her hands. Ryan had the decency to appear embarrassed, while Rachel's expression showed both relief and concern. So, this is what you really think of me, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the storm raging inside me. All these years, I thought, we were friends because you valued me, not because I was your token middle-class charity case. Emily, you're overreacting. Jessica stood up, adopting the patronizing tone she used when she wanted to regain control of a situation. We were just talking. You know how it is when we get together? We tease each other. Tease? You weren't teasing. You were mocking my entire existence, I replied. And the worst part is, you waited until I wasn't in the room to do it. Look, it's late, and we've all had too much to drink, Michael intervened, always the diplomat. Let's talk about this in the morning when everyone's thinking clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly, I said. For the first time, I'm seeing all of you clearly, and I don't like what I see. If you're going to be this dramatic about a little harmless conversation, maybe you don't belong here, Jessica snapped, her true colors emerging as her control of the situation slipped. Jessica, Rachel protested. No, she's right, I said, a strange calm settling over me. I don't belong here. I never did. But that's not my failure. It's yours. All of yours. You need to decide right now, Jessica declared, looking at each person in the room. Either Emily needs to get over herself and stop this ridiculous overreaction, or she can leave, and anyone who thinks she's right can go with her. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at each face, waiting for anyone besides Rachel to stand up for me. Michael studied his hands. Amanda stared at Jessica with wide eyes, clearly terrified of making the wrong choice. Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it without speaking. I guess that's my answer, I said quietly. Rachel, you don't have to do this. Stay. Enjoy your break. No way, Rachel said, standing up. I'm not staying another minute in this house. Fine, Jessica said coldly. Both of you can leave. Now. And so at 2 a.m, Rachel and I packed our bags while the others remained in the den, their voices hushed but animated. Rachel called a taxi service while I stood in the grand entryway, looking at the photos of our group that Jessica's mother had framed and placed on the console table. 5 smiling faces, arms around each other, Blue Horizon Resort in the background. A perfect lie. The taxi arrived, its headlights cutting through the darkness as snow began to fall. Rachel hugged me tightly before we separated to return to our respective schools, promising to stay in touch. As the lake house disappeared in the rearview mirror, I made a silent promise to myself. I would never again measure my worth through the eyes of people who couldn't see my value. The return to university after the lake house incident was harder than I expected. Despite the betrayal, a part of me mourned the friendship I thought I had. I threw myself into my studies with renewed intensity, channeling my hurt into ambition. If they thought I was destined for mediocrity, I would prove them spectacularly wrong. I adjusted my course load to include additional classes in finance and marketing, recognizing that a comprehensive understanding of business would serve me better than a narrow focus. My professors noticed my dedication, and one in particular, Dr. Bennett, became a mentor. She had built and sold 2 successful hotel chains before entering academia, and under her guidance I began to develop my own business philosophy. "Properties are like people, Emily," she told me during one of our coffee meetings. "They have potential that isn't always obvious at first glance. The trick is seeing what could be, not just what is." Those words resonated with me, perhaps because I had been so thoroughly misjudged myself. I began to look at struggling properties with new eyes, imagining transformations where others saw only decline. My first internship came through Dr. Bennett's recommendation at a boutique hotel management company specializing in turning around underperforming properties. The pay was minimal, but the experience was invaluable. I worked directly under the operations manager, absorbing every aspect of the business from housekeeping schedules to revenue management. By my senior year, I had developed a reputation as a problem solver, someone who could walk into a dysfunctional department and identify the issues no one else could see. Graduation came with an offer for an assistant manager position at one of the company's newly acquired properties, a full-time zone away from Sandpoint. The salary was modest, but the role came with the opportunity to implement my ideas. Within 6 months, I had reorganized the front office procedures, resulting in higher guest satisfaction scores and reduced overtime costs. By the end of my first year, I was promoted to manager. While I was building my career one careful step at a time, social media kept me painfully informed of my former friends' lives. Jessica and Michael got engaged in a carefully choreographed beach proposal at Blue Horizon Resort, the very place that had once been special to all of us. Amanda married and divorced in quick succession, her posts vacillating between filtered happiness and cryptic references to betrayal. Ryan completed medical school and began a prestigious residency, his profile filled with photos in scrubs and at hospital charity events. Through it all, the annual Blue Horizon reunion remained a constant, with photos tagged, "Friendship never changes," appearing like clockwork each summer. Rachel remained in contact, though our busy lives meant conversations were sporadic. She had completed her psychology degree and was working with children in the foster system, finding purpose in helping others navigate trauma and loss. Each year, she would receive an invitation to the Blue Horizon reunion, and each year, she would decline, telling them she couldn't attend without me being invited as well. Jessica's response was always the same. Emily had chosen to walk away, and the invitation remained open to Rachel alone. By my late 20s, I had advanced to regional operations director, overseeing 5 properties across 2 states. The work was demanding but rewarding, and I was building a reputation in the industry for my ability to identify underperforming assets with strong potential. My approach was different from the standard corporate model. I believed in preserving the unique character of each property while modernizing the operations and guest experience. At 30, I took the biggest risk of my career. With the backing of 2 investors who believed in my vision and a bank loan, secured against everything I owned, I formed Coastal Horizon Developments. Our business model was straightforward but distinctive. We would acquire struggling properties in beautiful locations, renovate them to highlight their unique character, and operate them as boutique destinations for travelers seeking authentic experiences. Our first acquisition was a rundown motel on a stunning stretch of Pacific coastline. The property had gorgeous bones hidden beneath decades of neglect and poor management. We renovated room by room, keeping the vintage character while adding modern amenities. The transformation was featured in a travel magazine, and suddenly Coastal Horizon was on the industry map. Success bred success. Each property we acquired and transformed generated capital and credibility for the next project. By 33, I was leading a company with 15 properties across 3 states, each one distinctive but united by our commitment to quality and sense of place. Industry awards followed, along with speaking engagements and mentions in business publications. Through it all, the annual photos from Blue Horizon continued to appear in my social media feeds. Despite muting and unfollowing my former friends, mutual connections meant their perfectly posed beach photos would find their way to my screen. Year after year, the same group on the same beach at the same resort, their faces showing the subtle changes of aging while the background remained unchanged. I would be lying if I said it didn't still sting. Not because I wanted to be included in their vacations, but because Blue Horizon had been special to me too. In my most honest moments, I could admit that a small part of me was still that girl, with her nose pressed against the lobby glass, looking in from the outside. Then came the news that changed everything. A business associate mentioned over dinner that Blue Horizon Resort was struggling financially. Years of minimal investment and changing travel trends had left the once prestigious property falling behind newer, more innovative competitors. Occupancy was down, and rumor had it the aging owner was looking to sell. My first thought was purely business. The property was in a prime location, had strong bones, and fit perfectly with Coastal Horizon's model. My second thought was far less professional. After 10 years of exclusion, after watching my former friends continue their tradition at a place that had once meant so much to me, I could take it away. I could own the very symbol of their privilege and my exclusion. That night, I pulled up the most recent photo of them at Blue Horizon. Jessica standing in the center of the group on the main terrace, the same spot where she had once raised a toast to us. Michael beside her, his arm around her waist in the same possessive gesture he had used since high school. Amanda on Jessica's other side, still mirroring her pose after all these years. Ryan standing slightly apart, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. I closed my laptop and called my financial team. It was time to make an offer on Blue Horizon Resort. The acquisition process began with a discreet inquiry through a third-party representative. I didn't want my name associated with the potential purchase until absolutely necessary, concerned that personal history might complicate professional negotiations. My team conducted thorough due diligence, confirming what my industry contacts had suggested. Blue Horizon was indeed struggling financially, with declining occupancy rates, deferred maintenance issues, and an outdated marketing strategy. The property's problems were fixable. The location remained prime, the architecture was still distinctive, and the bones of the resort were solid. What it needed was significant capital investment and a fresh vision, both of which Coastal Horizon could provide. Our initial offer was calculated based on current performance rather than potential. A standard approach, but one that generated predictable pushback from the seller. 2 weeks into negotiations, I decided it was time to meet the owner personally. Mr. Winters had owned Blue Horizon for over 40 years, purchasing it as a young entrepreneur with inherited wealth and building it into what had once been the crown jewel of Sandpoint's tourism industry. Now in his 70s, his failure to adapt to changing market conditions had allowed the property to slide into genteel decline. I walked into his wood-paneled office overlooking the resort's gardens, prepared for a tough negotiation. What I wasn't prepared for was his immediate recognition. "Emily Thompson," he said, rising from behind his desk with surprising agility. "I remember you. You used to visit with your grandparents and then later with the Richardson girl and her friends." I was momentarily taken aback. You have a good memory, Mr. Winters. When you've been in this business as long as I have, you remember the people who truly appreciate your property, he replied, gesturing for me to take a seat. Your grandfather would count out cash for your weekend stays, always with such pride. And later, you were the one who used to chat with my staff about operations, while your friends were focused on their tans. The negotiation that followed was unlike any I had experienced. Rather than focusing solely on price, Mr. Winters was deeply concerned about the future of Blue Horizon. He shared stories of building the resort, of challenges overcome, and moments of triumph. I found myself responding with my own vision for the property, not the sanitized version prepared for investors, but my genuine desire to restore it to glory while honoring its history. You know, he said after listening to my plans, I've had higher offers. Corporate groups who would scrape this place clean and rebuild something with no soul. But I think you understand what Blue Horizon is supposed to be. We reached an agreement that afternoon. The price was fair to both parties, with contingencies that protected his legacy while giving me the freedom to implement necessary changes. As we shook hands, he asked one final question. Those friends of yours still come every summer. The Richardson girl books the same suite like clockwork. Will that be a problem for you? I smiled, keeping my voice neutral. Not at all, Mr. Winters. Customer loyalty is something to be valued. The acquisition was finalized 3 weeks later, and the real work began. I temporarily relocated to Sandpoint, moving into one of the resort's ocean view suites and immersing myself in every aspect of the operation. The staff was understandably anxious about new ownership, but my hands-on approach and clear vision quickly won over most. The renovation plan was ambitious, but carefully phased to allow the resort to remain open with minimal disruption to guests. We started with infrastructure upgrades that guests wouldn't see but would definitely feel. New HVAC systems, updated plumbing, and enhanced Wi-Fi throughout the property. The lobby was refreshed first, maintaining its coastal elegance while introducing more contemporary furniture and lighting. Guest rooms were renovated in sections, floor by floor. We preserved architectural details like crown molding and built-in window seats while modernizing bathrooms and replacing outdated furnishings. Each room received smart technology controls, luxury linens, and locally sourced artwork depicting Sandpoint scenes. The restaurant was a particular focus. We hired a chef who specialized in regional cuisine and redesigned the space to maximize ocean views. The dated carpet was replaced with reclaimed wood floors, and the heavy drapes gave way to subtle blinds that could be fully retracted during daylight hours. Throughout the renovation, I incorporated elements that held personal meaning. The library was stocked with books by authors I had discovered during my college years when reading became both escape and education. The garden paths were lined with the same flowers my grandmother had grown in her modest backyard. And in the lobby, I commissioned a local artist to create a mosaic using sea glass in the exact shade of blue that had given the resort its name. As the transformation progressed, word spread through the industry. Travel writers requested tours, and advance bookings began to increase. We planned a grand reopening to coincide with the resort's 50th anniversary, sending invitations to industry leaders, local dignitaries, and travel influencers. It was during the planning for this event that I discovered something that changed everything. My social media director, monitoring mentions of Blue Horizon across platforms, showed me a private post she had access to through a mutual connection. Jessica had posted to her friends, "Annual BH trip booked for the weekend of June 15th. Can't wait for our special suite and all our traditions. Hope the new ownership hasn't ruined our spot." Suite 16. 16 years and counting. The post included a screenshot of her confirmation email with the reservation details. 16 years. They had continued their annual tradition without interruption since high school, meaning they had resumed immediately after the lake house incident without missing a single year. The exclusion had been deliberate and consistent. My initial reaction was to simply cancel the reservation. As owner, it would be within my rights to do so, citing renovation schedules or overbooking. I could deny them access to the place that had become the physical embodiment of their continued rejection. But as I looked around at the resort taking new shape under my vision, I realized a simple exclusion would be too easy, too quickly forgotten. They would book somewhere else, maintain their tradition, and I would become a footnote in their story, the bitter former friend who couldn't move past high school dynamics. What if, instead, I welcomed them personally? What if I showed them exactly what I had built while they were busy maintaining their insular traditions? What if, for one weekend, they experienced Blue Horizon not as privileged guests, but as people who had to confront the consequences of their actions? I called the reservations manager to my office. "The Richardson party booking for June 15th, I said. "Please upgrade them to the oceanfront suite at no additional charge. And make a note that I'll be handling their check-in personally." With the decision made to face my former friends directly, I needed more information about their current lives. Despite occasional glimpses through social media, I had intentionally maintained distance from the details of their day-to-day existence. Now I needed insight that only someone close to them could provide. I reached out to Rachel for the first time in nearly a year. Our friendship had never fully recovered from the night at the lake house, not because of any animosity, but because the incident had sent us on such different paths. She had remained on the periphery of the original group, occasionally joining them for dinners or celebrations, but never for the sacred Blue Horizon reunion. We met at a small cafe in the city where she now worked as a clinical psychologist, specializing in adolescent trauma. Time had been kind to Rachel. Her curly hair was cut shorter than I remembered, and slim reading glasses perched on her nose, but her warm smile remained unchanged. "I saw the news about Blue Horizon," she said after we had exchanged pleasantries. "I couldn't believe it at first, but then I thought, of course Emily would be the one to save it. It's perfect." "It's a good business decision," I replied, trying to maintain professional distance. "The property has great potential." Rachel's knowing look cut through my pretense, and the fact that Jessica and company treat it like their personal playground had nothing to do with your interest? I sighed, stirring my coffee. It wasn't the primary motivation, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't cross my mind, which is actually why I wanted to talk to you. They've booked their annual trip for the reopening weekend. And you're wondering whether to roll out the red carpet or accidentally lose their reservation? Rachel asked with a slight smile. "Something like that," I admitted. "Before I decide, I'd like to know what I'm dealing with. How are they now? Really?" Rachel considered the question carefully. "They're not as close as they pretend to be on Instagram." Jessica and Michael are still married, but it's more of a business arrangement than a love match at this point. They're all about appearances, the right schools for their kids, the right vacations, the right social circles. Amanda's divorce was messy, financially and emotionally. Her ex took her for almost everything, and she's been struggling to maintain the lifestyle she thinks she deserves. Jessica helps her out sometimes, but there's always a power dynamic there. "And Ryan?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Ryan's professionally successful but personally adrift," Rachel replied. "He never married. Dates women in their 20s, which is getting less charming as he approaches 40. I think he's lonely but would never admit it." She paused, studying my face. "He asked about you a few years ago, after you were featured in that business magazine." I felt an unwelcome flutter in my chest and quickly suppressed it. "Ancient history," I said firmly. "What about the group dynamic? Do they still function as a unit?" "On the surface, yes. Jessica still sets the agenda and everyone still follows. But there are cracks. Michael has had some business setbacks he tries to hide. Amanda resents Jessica's perfect life, even while, depending on her friendship, Ryan plays the role of carefree bachelor, but seems increasingly tired of it." Rachel leaned forward. The Blue Horizon trip is the one time each year when they all pretend everything is exactly as it always was. It's like a ritual that keeps their idealized past alive. As Rachel spoke, an idea began to form. My initial thought of simply confronting them with my success felt insufficient. What if, instead, I created an experience that forced them to confront the reality of who they had become and the consequences of choices made long ago? Rachel, I said slowly, what would you think about being part of their Blue Horizon experience this year? As my guest, not theirs. Her eyebrows rose. What exactly are you planning, Emily? Not revenge, I assured her, though the line between justice and vengeance felt increasingly blurry. A chance for growth, for all of us. Over the next hour, I outlined my evolving plan. Each of my former friends would receive a personalized experience at Blue Horizon, one that addressed their specific vulnerabilities while offering a path to redemption. Rachel would be my inside person, helping ensure the experiences remained challenging but not cruel. This is either brilliant or terrible, Rachel said when I finished explaining. Maybe both. But I'm in. After 10 years of watching them exclude you while pretending nothing changed, I think they're overdue for a reality check. Back at Blue Horizon, I assembled a small team of trusted staff to help implement what we were now calling Operation Reunion. My executive assistant, who had been with me since the early days of Coastal Horizon, coordinated the logistics. The UpDirt's head of guest services, a former psychologist who had changed careers midlife, provided valuable insight into creating experiences that would challenge without traumatizing. For Jessica, who derived her sense of self-worth from status and appearance, I arranged participation in our new community outreach program. Local children from underprivileged backgrounds would be visiting the resort for swimming lessons and beach activities, guided by guest volunteers. Jessica would be personally invited to lead this effort, placing her in a position where her social standing meant nothing compared to her ability to connect with children who had never experienced privilege. Michael, whose passive acceptance of Jessica's behavior had enabled years of exclusion, would be signed up for our corporate team-building program. The exercises were specifically designed to highlight the impact of bystander behavior and the importance of speaking up against group misconduct. For Amanda, struggling financially but desperate to maintain appearances, I arranged a complimentary financial wellness consultation disguised as a premium guest service. The resort's partnership with a wealth management firm would provide her with practical advice for her actual situation, not the one she pretended to have. Ryan presented the greatest challenge. His professional success as a doctor was genuine, but his personal connections remained superficial. I arranged for him to meet with the director of our medical volunteer program, which provided free health screenings to local fishermen and their families. The program needed doctors willing to donate time, and Ryan's expertise would be genuinely valuable. Each experience was designed to be challenging but ultimately positive, offering a chance for growth rather than simple humiliation. I wanted them to leave Blue Horizon changed, not just angry. As the weekend approached, my anxiety grew. Was I taking this too far? Was I allowing past hurt to cloud my professional judgment? The night before their arrival, I stood on the balcony of my suite, looking out over the same ocean that had witnessed our teenage promises of eternal friendship. The waves continued their rhythmic dance against the shore, indifferent to human dramas. I thought about the girl I had been, so eager to belong that I had accepted friendship on unequal terms. I thought about the woman I had become, successful, beyond what any of us could have imagined back then. And I wondered, not for the first time, whether this elaborate plan said more about their failings or my inability to truly let go. A text from Rachel interrupted my reflection. They've all confirmed they're arriving tomorrow. Jessica requested champagne in their suite, as always. Are you ready for this? I typed back a simple response. As ready as I'll ever be. Then I turned from the ocean view and went inside to review the final details of Operation Reunion. For, better or worse, tomorrow would bring a confrontation 10 years in the making. The morning of their arrival dawned clear and perfect, as if the universe itself wanted to set the stage for the drama about to unfold. I dressed carefully in a tailored blue suit that matched the resort's signature color, professional yet approachable. After a final briefing with my core team, I positioned myself at the front desk, ostensibly reviewing paperwork but actually watching the entrance. Rachel arrived first, giving me a subtle thumbs up before taking a seat in the lobby with a clear view of the entrance. 20 minutes later, a luxury SUV pulled into the circular drive. Jessica emerged first from the passenger side, sunglasses perched on her perfectly highlighted hair. Michael followed from the driver's seat, busying himself with luggage while a valet approached. Amanda exited from the back, immediately checking her reflection in the tinted windows. Ryan was the last to arrive, pulling up in a separate vehicle, a convertible that screamed midlife crisis. They gathered in a tight cluster before entering, Jessica clearly giving instructions that the others nodded along to. Some dynamics never change, I thought, as I straightened my posture and prepared for the moment of recognition. Jessica approached the front desk first, sliding off her sunglasses with practiced elegance. Richardson party, checking in for the Oceanside suite. I believe you have a note that we always have champagne ready upon arrival. Welcome to Blue Horizon Resort, Ms. Richardson, I said, stepping forward with a professional smile. We've been expecting you. The moment of recognition played out exactly as I had imagined countless times. Jessica's carefully composed expression faltered, her eyes widening in shock. Amanda audibly gasped. Michael froze mid-motion, a credit card held awkwardly between his fingers. Only Ryan seemed to recover quickly, a range of emotions crossing his face before settling into an uncertain smile. Emily? Jessica finally managed. What are you doing here? I'm the owner and CEO of Coastal Horizon Developments, I replied, my voice steady. We acquired Blue Horizon last year. I personally oversaw the renovation. You own this place? Amanda asked, her voice rising to a pitch that turned heads in the lobby. I do, I confirmed. And I've arranged some special experiences for valued returning guests like yourselves. Rachel, would you mind showing everyone to the ocean front? Sweet! It's been upgraded since your last visit. Rachel appeared at my side, her presence clearly confusing the group further. Happy to, she said brightly. Follow me, everyone. Emily has made some amazing changes to the property. As they followed Rachel toward the elevators, I caught fragments of urgent whispers. Jessica's, "Did you know about this?" Michael's, "How could I possibly know?" Ryan's, "She looks great," followed by Jessica's sharp, "Seriously, Ryan?" I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction before returning to actual work. The confrontation had only just begun, but round one had gone exactly as planned. That evening, I hosted them in the resort's private dining room, a space usually reserved for significant celebrations. The coastal-inspired menu featured local seafood and produce, paired with wines from regional vineyards. I sat at the head of the table, with Rachel to my right and Jessica to my left, a seating arrangement that subtly established my position of authority. The conversation remained stilted throughout the appetizer course. Jessica attempted to maintain control through pointed questions about the acquisition and renovation, clearly trying to establish whether my success was luck or legitimately earned. I answered each question with calm confidence, neither downplaying my achievements nor rubbing them in her face. "So," Amanda finally asked during a lull, "how long have you been planning this? Buying our special place?" Blue Horizon came on? The market at a time when Coastal Horizon was looking to expand our portfolio in this region. I replied evenly. It was primarily a business decision. Primarily, Michael noted, picking up on the qualifier. But not entirely? I met his gaze, directly. Let's just say I appreciated the symbolism. Well, It's certainly a power move, Ryan commented with a hint of admiration. Buying the exact resort where we've been coming without you all these years. You must have really made it. I've been fortunate, I acknowledged. But success is about more than acquisitions. It's about creating value and positive experiences. I turned to address the table, which is why I've arranged some special activities for each of you during your stay. Rachel has the details. Rachel distributed elegant folders containing personalized itineraries. Emily wanted to ensure your 16th annual visit was memorable, she explained, her tone pleasant, but her eyes watchful. Jessica opened her folder first, her expression shifting from curiosity to confusion to thinly veiled outrage. Community service with local children? I'm on vacation, not applying for sainthood. Our community outreach program is quite popular, with our VIP guests, I explained. Many find giving back to be the most rewarding part of their stay. And financial wellness consulting? Amanda questioned, her voice tight. I don't remember requesting financial advice. It's a premium service we offer to valued guests, I replied smoothly. Completely confidential, of course. Michael studied his team-building itinerary with a frown, while Ryan seemed genuinely intrigued by the medical volunteer opportunity. This actually looks interesting, he said, earning a glare from Jessica. Participation is entirely optional, I assured them, though my tone suggested otherwise. But I think you'll find each experience has been carefully selected to enhance your Blue Horizon stay. The remainder of dinner passed in a blur of forced pleasantries and underlying tension. As coffee and dessert were served, Jessica finally addressed the elephant in the room. So this is your revenge? Buying our special place and making us feel uncomfortable for a weekend, she asked, her voice low but intense. This isn't about revenge, Jessica, I replied, setting down my coffee cup. It's about growth. For all of us. Oh, please, she scoffed. You're loving this. Poor little Emily finally gets to show the mean popular kids that she won in the end. If that's what you think this is about, you haven't changed at all, said quietly. This isn't about winning or losing. It's about consequences and choices. We were kids, Michael interjected. What happened at the lake house was ugly, but it was a decade ago. It wasn't just the lake house, Rachel pointed out. It was the 10 years of deliberate exclusion that followed, the annual tradition that became a symbol of Emily's rejection. We invited you every year, Jessica said to Rachel. You chose not to come. Because you refused to invite Emily, Rachel replied. You made it a test of loyalty. Look, Ryan said, his doctor's instinct for diffusing tension evident. Clearly there are unresolved issues here. Maybe this weekend is an opportunity to finally clear the air. That's exactly what it is, I agreed. An opportunity. What you do with it is up to you. As they left the dining room, I overheard Jessica muttering to Michael, This is ridiculous. She can't seriously expect us to do community service and team building on our vacation. I think she seriously expects exactly that, Michael replied, his voice revealing more resignation than resistance. The next morning brought the first test of my plan. Would they participate in the arranged activities, or would they defy them? Out of pride? I watched from my office window as Jessica reluctantly joined the children's program on the beach, her designer swimwear comically overdressed compared to the practical attire of the program leaders. Initially stiff and uncomfortable, she gradually began to engage with a young girl who seemed determined to master floating on her back. Michael joined the corporate group in the garden pavilion, his body language defensive at first, but slowly, opening as the exercises progressed. Amanda met with the financial advisor in one of the Ocean View meeting rooms, emerging 2 hours later with reddened eyes but a straighter posture. And Ryan, to my surprise, threw himself wholeheartedly into the medical clinic, working efficiently alongside the regular volunteers. Rachel provided updates throughout the day, reporting that despite initial resistance, each person seemed to be genuinely affected by their experience. Jessica actually smiled, she texted. A real smile, not her social media face. That evening, I had arranged for them to dine without me, giving them space to process the day together. Instead, I worked late in my office, reviewing plans for our next property acquisition while trying not to obsess over what they might be saying about me. A knock on my door around 10 o'clock surprised me. Even more surprising was finding Ryan, standing in the hallway alone. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Just the two of us?" I hesitated, then gestured him in, leaving the door partially open for propriety's sake. He took a seat across from my desk, looking more serious than I had seen him since our arrival. "The medical program is amazing," he began. "Those fishermen have health issues they've been ignoring for years because they can't afford to take time off. One guy today had early signs of skin cancer that would have been completely treatable if caught sooner." "I'm glad you found it meaningful," I said, unsure where this was heading. "It made me think about my own practice," he continued. "I have this fancy office in the city, seeing patients who could easily go anywhere for care. Meanwhile, there are communities like this with serious healthcare gaps." He paused, looking directly at me. "I've been playing it safe my whole life, Emily, following the expected path, just like I did at the lake house. Ryan? No, let me finish. I should have stood up for you that night. I knew what Jessica was saying was wrong, but I was afraid of being the next target. It was cowardice, plain and simple." He leaned forward. "I've regretted it for 10 years. The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. This wasn't the superficial charm I remembered. This was genuine remorse. "Thank you for saying that," I said quietly. "It means something, even after all this time." "Your success is incredible," he continued. "But what impresses me most is how you've used it. This place, you've created something special here, something meaningful." The conversation shifted to the renovation details, my vision for the property, his experiences as a doctor. For nearly an hour, we talked as equals, as the adults we had become rather than the teenagers we had been. When he finally left, I felt a slight shift in my emotional landscape, a loosening of a knot I had carried for so long. The next day brought more surprises. Amanda approached me at breakfast, asking if she could speak with the financial advisor. Again. "I've been living beyond my means for years," she admitted. "Trying to keep up with Jessica, honestly. Maybe it's time to build a life I can actually afford." Michael found me reviewing landscaping plans in the garden. "The team building facilitator is excellent," he said without preamble. "Made me realize how much damage is done by staying silent when you should speak up." He hesitated, then added, "I should have defended you that night. And every year since, when Jessica would declare that you weren't welcome at our reunion. Even Jessica showed signs of impact." Rachel reported that she had spent extra time with the children's program, particularly connecting with a girl from a single-parent household. "She seemed genuinely moved by the experience," Rachel said, though she'd rather die than admit it. The final dinner of their stay was scheduled for the resort's main restaurant, rather than the private dining room. A public setting for what would inevitably be a public reckoning. I arranged for a round table rather than a rectangular one, eliminating the power position I had deliberately taken the first night. The atmosphere was noticeably different as we gathered. The defensive hostility had been replaced by a more contemplative mood. Even Jessica seemed less armored, though still guarded. We were midway through the main course when she finally addressed me directly. "This whole setup," she said, gesturing around the restaurant. "The activities, the confrontations. It's manipulation. You know that, right?" "I prefer to think of it as creating an opportunity for growth," I replied. "But yes, I arranged experiences I thought might be meaningful for each of you." "Because you appointed yourself judge and jury of our moral development?" Her tone was challenging, but lacked the cutting edge of our first night. "Because after 10 years of exclusion, I thought you might benefit from seeing things from a different perspective," I countered. the perspective of those who aren't automatically given everything they want. So this is punishment, she concluded. If that's all you've taken from this weekend, then I've failed, I said honestly. This wasn't about punishing you, Jessica. It was about breaking a cycle that's been harmful to all of us, including you. Harmful to me? She scoffed. I'm not the one who was excluded. Aren't you? I asked quietly. You've spent 10 years maintaining an artificial friend group based on loyalty tests and shared history, rather than growing into new connections. You've prioritized appearances over authenticity. You've surrounded yourself with people who won't challenge you even when you're wrong. The table fell silent. Jessica stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then, to everyone's surprise, she laughed. Not her usual controlled social laugh, but something more genuine and self-deprecating. God, you sound like my therapist, she said. $300 an hour to tell me I'm living an inauthentic life. You have a therapist? Amanda asked, clearly shocked. For 2 years now, Jessica admitted. Turns out having the perfect life on Instagram doesn't fix what's broken inside. She turned back to me. Those kids today, they didn't care about my car or my clothes or my summer house. They just wanted someone to see them, to pay attention. It was refreshing. Jessica, Michael began, reaching for her hand. No, let me finish, she said, echoing Ryan's words from the night before. Emily, what you did this weekend was manipulative and over the top and exactly what we deserved. She raised her glass. To Emily Thompson, who built an empire while we were busy taking selfies at a resort we didn't even own. The toast broke the remaining tension, and the conversation flowed more naturally for the remainder of the meal. We shared stories of the past decade, filling in gaps and correcting misconceptions. There were moments of genuine laughter and moments of painful honesty. It wasn't perfect reconciliation, but it was something more valuable, authentic connection. As we prepared to leave the restaurant, Jessica pulled me aside. This doesn't fix everything, she said quietly. 10 years of hurt doesn't disappear in one weekend. I know, I acknowledged. I don't expect it to. But it's a start, she continued. A reset, maybe. She hesitated, then asked, Will you keep the resort? Of course, I replied. It's a valuable property with excellent potential. And will we still be welcome for our annual trip? The question caught me off guard. After everything, she still wanted to maintain the tradition that had symbolized my exclusion for so long. That depends, I said finally. Will it be the same group as always? Jessica held my gaze for a long moment, then smiled slightly. I was thinking it might be time to expand the invitation list. The morning of their departure brought clear skies and calm seas, a perfect backdrop for goodbyes that felt significantly different from our last parting a decade ago. I joined them for breakfast on the main terrace, the same spot where we had once made teenage promises of eternal friendship. Jessica approached me first, her designer luggage neatly arranged by the door. The children's program director gave me her card, she said, sounding almost shy. Apparently, they can always use volunteers, even from out of town. I thought maybe next time I'm in the area, they'd be lucky to have you, I replied sincerely. Your time would mean more to them than any donation. She nodded, then added, I've been thinking about what you said, about maintaining artificial connections. There's some truth to that. Michael and I have been going through the motions for years, presenting a perfect image while growing further apart. She glanced toward her husband, who was settling their bill at the front desk. We're starting couples therapy when we get home. Should have done it years ago. Michael joined us moments later, extending his hand formally. Thank you for an unexpectedly enlightening weekend, Emily. The team-building program was actually transformative. I've spent too long being the peacekeeper at the expense of standing up for what's right. It's never too late to find your voice, I told him. Even in established relationships. Amanda's goodbye was tearful, but genuine. The financial advisor helped me develop a realistic budget, she confided. I'm going to sell my house and move somewhere I can actually afford. Jessica offered to help, but I need to do this on my own. She hugged me impulsively. Thank you for not making me feel ashamed about my situation. I've been drowning in shame for years. Ryan was the last to approach, hanging back until the others had moved toward the vehicles. I've been thinking about the medical program, he said. I could arrange my schedule to come back once a month, maybe establish a regular clinic, if that would be welcome. The community would benefit enormously, I assured him, and the resort would be happy to provide accommodations. He nodded, then added hesitantly, and maybe we could catch up properly when I'm here, without all this history hanging over us. I felt the same flutter I had experienced when Rachel mentioned his interest, but this time I didn't immediately suppress it. I'd like that, I said simply. Rachel observed the goodbyes from a slight distance, joining me only after the two vehicles had disappeared down the resort's winding driveway. Well, she said, linking her arm through mine, that was not how I expected this weekend to go. Me neither, I admitted. I thought I wanted to see them humbled, maybe even humiliated, but watching them actually grow and change was better somehow. That's because you've grown too, Rachel pointed out. The Emily who left that lake house would have wanted revenge. The Emily who built this place wants redemption, for herself and for others. We walked along the beach path that circled the property, the same path where our teenage selves had once shared secrets and dreams. The resort gleamed in the morning sunlight, transformed by my vision, yet still carrying echoes of its history, both the painful and the precious memories. Do you think they'll actually change? I asked. Or will they go back to their usual patterns once the shock wears off? Some will, some won't, Rachel replied pragmatically. Jessica and Michael have real work to do on their marriage. Amanda needs to rebuild her financial life from the ground up. Ryan, she gave me a knowing look. Ryan seems genuinely inspired by the medical program, and by you. That's complicated, I acknowledged. We have history. All relationships worth having are complicated, she said. The question is whether they're authentic. As we completed our circuit of the property, I found myself reflecting on the long journey from excluded friend to successful business owner. The hurt that had driven me initially had transformed into something more constructive, a determination to build something meaningful, not just profitable. Blue Horizon wasn't just a symbol of my financial success, but of my emotional growth as well. Will you invite them back? Rachel asked as we approached the main building. For real? Not just as part of some elaborate life lesson? I considered the question carefully. I think so, I said finally, not because I need their friendship or approval anymore, but because moving forward seems healthier than holding on to the past. That, Rachel said with a smile, is the most grown-up thing I've heard all weekend. The week following their departure was filled with the usual demands of running a resort property, but I found my thoughts repeatedly returning to the unexpected outcomes of the reunion. Jessica sent a substantial donation to the children's program, along with a note expressing interest in establishing a scholarship for local students. Michael emailed to request information about our corporate retreat packages, mentioning that his company could benefit from the team-building exercises he had experienced. Amanda sent a heartfelt thank you card for the financial consultation that had opened her eyes to possibilities beyond keeping up appearances. Ryan's follow-up was more personal. A simple text message. Working on details for the monthly clinic. Looking forward to our dinner next time. No manipulation or agenda required. 1 month later, I stood alone on the beach at sunset, watching. As the sky transformed through shades of orange and pink before settling into the deep blue of evening, the same ocean that had witnessed our teenage promises now reflected the woman I had become. Stronger for having been broken, wiser for having been foolish, and more compassionate for having experienced both exclusion and success. The path from that hurt girl at the lake house to the resort owner standing on this beach had been neither straight nor easy. There had been moments of doubt, of questioning whether success would ever truly heal the wound of rejection. What I had discovered, somewhat to my surprise, was that healing came not from proving my worth to others, but from recognizing it within myself. Exclusion had taught me resilience. Betrayal had taught me discernment. Success had taught me responsibility. And this weekend of confrontation had taught me that true freedom comes not from revenge, but from the ability to offer others the growth you have found for yourself. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, I made a new promise, not to friends who might fail me, but to myself, to build spaces where people feel valued, to create success that lifts others, and to remember that sometimes the most beautiful views come after the steepest climbs. I turned back toward the resort, its windows glowing with warm light against the gathering darkness. 10 years of exclusion had led me here, to ownership of the very symbol of my rejection. But the real victory wasn't in the acquisition, it was in the transformation of both the property and myself. And perhaps, in some small way, in the transformation of those who had once excluded me. Have you ever experienced exclusion that ultimately led to unexpected growth in your life? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey of turning hurt into success resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe. For more stories about overcoming obstacles and finding your own path to healing. Remember, sometimes being excluded from where you thought you belonged leads you exactly where you were meant to be all along. Thank you for joining me today, and I wish you strength on your own journey of growth and transformation.